and I'll share, hopefully, the nice big blue slide again. Everyone see that? You can just nod. Okay. Today we're learning about district councils. We've already talked a little bit about what brought us here and why we're interested. A couple of housekeeping items. If you can rename yourself, just make sure your district number or your internet club, for that matter, is part of your name, just so it helps me remember and place you geographically. And then at some point, we kind of did this in the round robin, but if you want to go into the chat along with your email, drop your name, district, what role you play in Interact or in the district leadership, or in general in your club, and then what you'd hope to take, one thing you'd hope to take away from the presentation today, and be as brief as possible with that if you can. That'll help me make sure we cover all the topics. You are being recorded, as I mentioned earlier, and it'll be available afterwards, so we can look back on ourselves and you can see my lovely face and all your lovely faces once again. And then just be nice. That's my general rule of order. Follow the 4-way test. Make it truthful. Make it beneficial to all concerned. And you know the rest. So moving right along. This is me. I'm Peter. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And I'm currently the co-chair of Interact in District 5170. I've been the co-chair for this is my 3rd year as co-chair, and then I was sort of an understudy for a couple of years before that as sort of a senior advisor. My co-chair Julie Herndon could not be here today, but she's been chairing Interact and or working with our youth programs in our district for a number of years, well before my time in Rotary. I've been a Rotarian for about 11 or 12 years now. She's fabulous. I would love to have her here with me, but I'm going to try and hold it down solo today. My club is Campbell. Campbell is in California. It's adjacent to San Jose, but I actually live in San Jose. Our club was a merger of a few clubs, and Campbell won the branding war, unfortunately. We're in the South Bay area in San Francisco, and our district, which I'll describe to you in a second, is primarily based around that area. My day job is in marketing and communications. I'm no longer, well, I do a little bit of consulting on the side, but I actually have a full-time gig now. I'm at the San Jose Public Library Foundation, which is the 501c wing of our city's library, and I'm their communications coordinator. So that's primarily my background. I studied screenwriting in school. I've been a writer pretty much my whole life. So that's sort of where the space that I come from and where I'm most comfortable. So District 5170, as Chris Miller mentioned earlier in the video and in his presentation, Chris is our youth services chair for our district. We're proud to have, at least we hope, and we brag about it, so we have to keep it up, the largest Interact presence in the world, meaning in terms of students and number of clubs, number of students. There might be districts with more clubs, but we certainly have the most involvement in terms of rank and file. This obviously fluctuates a bit. This year it's been obviously a little more tepid. I don't have the exact numbers of membership this year, but generally speaking, we fluctuate between about 5,000 to 7,000 members throughout these 133. And now actually it's grown since this slide was made. I think we're in the neighborhood of 140 now clubs. We've had some good recruitment going on this year. We break down into areas just like the Rotary level, although in our case, because the clubs are based at schools, right, and they're not necessarily tied to the same geographic areas that our Rotary clubs are, our areas don't overlap in terms of number, right? So for example, my Rotary club is in area 8, but the Interact clubs that we sponsor are in Interact area 7. So it gets a little bit confusing. We're trying to unify that within the next year. The district is restructuring our areas, so we're going to try and restructure the Interact areas to match as much as possible, because that gets a little confusing when you're talking about interacting, pun intended, between the clubs, the Rotary clubs and the Interactors. So we're really proud to have this kind of presence, and it has absolutely, like anyone else, been a challenge during the pandemic and the shelter in place. While our district council has been just really robust and meeting on a regular basis, continuing to meet on a regular basis in the Zoom sphere and in other platforms, I know for a fact that those 140 odd clubs, are very inconsistent in terms of how they're able to get together. I know some have had a big challenge. Others have done quite a bit. And it really does vary school to school, group to group, based on the leadership that's in place at the given time. But that's a little look at District 5170. And what we're going to cover today, and I'll keep this slide up because we'll just go through the topics, and I'm going to allow plenty of time for us to interact, again, pun intended, and ask questions. because I want to be a resource, but I'd also like you all to be resources for each other and to me, because I'm, like I said, I'm constantly learning better ways of doing things, and that includes in Rotary and Interact and just life in general. So what we're going to talk about today are district councils. We'll go over sort of, I'll go over the structure of what we use in our district, and I'd love to hear some examples from others, especially just burgeoning district councils. And I definitely would love to hear from Claire about how she collaborates with district leadership at the Rotary level too. That would be really interesting to find out and learn more about. Recruitment. So who are these amazing students who we get to lead their fellow students and their fellow interactors at the district level? How do we support them, meaning as chairs, but also as Rotary in general, and what kind of, and then also how do they support each other in terms of training and development and developing their leadership skills? That's one of my most things I'm most passionate about, and I'm really proud of the work that we do here for that. And then how does the district council itself support the clubs, the Interact clubs at the grassroots level, and also the different area leaders. And they do quite a bit of that, and it's primarily through workshops and other events. And then we'll talk about pros and of course cons, because there's pros to it and there are cons to it. There's upsides and downsides. On the whole, I would say district councils are a benefit, especially, and frankly, especially, I did mention that our district is not necessarily huge geographically, but in terms of the volume of students and the number of people we have participating, it does provide a lot of consistency and a lot of good efficiency for leadership to have a council like this at that level. About our district real quick, just so you can, if you're not, I know, again, Claire's from Tracy, so she kind of knows the Bay Area, which is great. We are the East Bay Area, so Alameda County, Santa Clara County, which is San Jose, Silicon Valley, quote unquote. We go all the way up to Palo Alto. So home to HP and Google and Adobe and Cisco and Zoom, by the way, San Jose based company. And then we also stretch down to Santa Cruz County, Santa Cruz area, so along the beach and the coast. And then we have some areas of South Santa Clara County and I think a little bit of San Benito County as well. So a pretty broad district in terms of diversity of ethnic population, diversity of income, diversity of school support, Title I schools, and sorry, I'm forgetting the other name for them in California. So it's a pretty broad spectrum of students that we see in Interact. At the district level, you're really getting the absolute type A, service-oriented students who participate in our district council. But there's just a broad spectrum, especially in the Bay Area, of youth that are getting involved. And one thing I can say, having worked on this and a number of other youth programs, what really drew me to Interact was the sort of leadership structure and the empowerment that we give to our interactors in this district in terms of being able to set their own agenda and organize their own fundraisers, organize their own projects, really sustain themselves and run their own ship. It's been incredibly inspiring and impressive to work in this space. So as far as a district council and what it is, some of you who are starting one or already have a district council in place, it is exactly what you think it is. It's a leadership structure for Interact at the district level. That's separate. In our case, it's separate from the Rotary district leadership. Our district council is independent in terms of how they govern themselves. There are processes that are governed by the district because Interact is a sponsored program of Rotary. So in terms of finances, all of our bank accounts and our money flows through the Rotary district, or more specifically our Rotary District Foundation, so it can be treated as a contribution and people can write donations off on their taxes. But because of that, the district has control sort of the purse strings. So everything we do, everything we spend, we have to justify it at the district level to the district, and we have to work with my youth services chair, Chris, to have the district leadership approve it. I don't sit on the district leadership team, the Rotary district leadership team, and I also don't have a vote on the Interact district council. The district council is, in our case, 32, I want to say, students, or 31. It involves, and I probably should share out a chart of this at some point, an organizational chart. We have a district governor and a lieutenant governor. They sort of serve as co-chairs. Neither one of them has a terrible amount more power, although at the end of the day, it's the governor where the buck stops. And then beneath them, they have a cabinet of a secretary, a treasurer, and then two interactors each assigned to outreach. Outreach works primarily with the clubs, communications between the clubs and the district council, and chartering new clubs, reaching out and recruiting new clubs. We have a two-person marketing team. They're actually a digital marketing team in our case, because a lot of what they do as far as promotion and marketing goes is online. So they manage our website, which needs to be managed a little better because they get a little focused on the social media, which is fantastic. But I know for Rotarians, sometimes it's hard to find information unless there's a website. But we have a great website, a robust social media presence, and they manage all of that. And then there's also two separate interactors who manage publicity, or publications, actually, pubs. And they support the marketing team by designing and creating flyers. We have a district newsletter that they've just started this year that's published on issue.com. You can go there and actually flip through it like a magazine. It's fabulous. And a variety of other pieces of swag, shirts, and things that we distribute throughout the year, stickers, badges for all of our district council members. That builds out the cabinet. And then beyond that, we have, like I said, 13 areas, and each of those areas has a director. So those directors are chosen, everyone in the cabinet and the area directors are chosen by that year's governor and lieutenant governor once they are selected, which usually happens at the end of the Rotary, or towards the end of the Rotary year. In fact, right now, we're in the application process for governor and district governor, and we'll be reviewing those applications and interviewing candidates very soon, and probably appointing the new governor and district or lieutenant governor for next year's Interact, either by the end of this month or early April. And that gives them a good couple months to recruit applications for, and then select their leadership team for next year. And they're involved in selecting that cabinet as well as all the area directors. So the district council in our case meets generally at least once a month. When they primarily get together around a few key things. One is planning big events. So we have 3 major events every year. Our new president's meeting, which goes down in the summer, usually in August, which is exactly what you think it is. It's the new presidents of all the Interact clubs in the district coming together for workshops and trainings, and sort of glimpse at the year ahead, and also to offer their feedback about what they might want to work on in terms of our district level projects. That's the second thing that they work on beyond events, is selecting and then announcing at the Fall Leadership Conference, the second big event in October, what the district has chosen to be the one community-based project, which is usually a local Bay Area-based or district-based project that they can volunteer their time on, as well as their dollars. This year it's been a little different in terms of not being able to volunteer as much time. And then they pick an international project that they primarily support through fundraising. This year, for a quick example, our community-based project is with the United Way Bay Area and their COVID relief efforts. So as much as possible, the students had planned to try to get out and volunteer, at food pantries and clinics and other places where they're able to contribute to the COVID relief effort. They haven't been able to do that as much as possible, or as much as they'd like. So we'll probably be making a more significant financial contribution to United Way this year than we would normally to a community project. The international project they chose, I was really excited about. It's the UN World Food Program, which actually won the Nobel Peace Prize 2 days after they selected it and announced it at Fall Leadership Conference. So that was a really great confluence of events. And they are primarily focused in Yemen, the country of Yemen in the Middle East, where there is a significant amount of food insecurity going on, starvation, and other unfortunate tragedies. So the World Food Program is devoted to solving that issue and hunger in Yemen, and our interactors are raising money right now to support that project. We generally raise at a district level anywhere from $40,000 to upwards of $100,000 a year in a really, really good year, that we then contribute at the end of the year to these projects. And then the district council also serves to elevate issues from the rank and file, from the grassroots, from the clubs, the school-based clubs, and we have a handful of community clubs. I know that was a question earlier. And they serve as a funnel for issues that might come up from that level, be it having to deal with your ASB or your student body association at your school to get access to money that you raised, because in some schools money has to go through the ASB. or it could be just club leadership and club challenges. You know, we've had, I'm not going to, not going to beat around the bush. There have been, certainly when you're dealing with youth, there have been some challenges in terms of, you know, bullying, harassment, issues like that. Some that sometimes happen primarily, usually from outside influences, but sometimes inside influences within Interact. So the district council serves as a great space and a comfortable space for everyone to share issues that are happening like that, and that helps it bubble up to the level of the chairs. Beyond the council itself of the current interactors, we have anywhere from, at any given time, 6 to 8 advisors, youth advisors, who serve as the primary conduits for for working with and mentoring and developing these wonderful young leaders. These are generally college age or usually young professional age, early 20s, mid 20s, young people who have been in Interact before, usually have been district council members themselves, and are now coming back to volunteer their time as mentors, which is a real big help to Julie and I, my co-chair and myself, because that allows us to just primarily be the bumper rails at the bowling alley. We keep everything on track. We make sure things don't go off the rails, particularly around finances and fundraising. We do a lot of coaching on how to make sure that you have a business plan in place to raise money, or to raise money to pay for these great t-shirts you want to send to all your interactors. You have to make sure that you have the money to pay for them. Otherwise you're going to be left with a box of shirts in your mom's garage, and that's not cool. I know that from personal experience. So we really serve to be guides and guideposts along the way. And that's something I absolutely love. That's why, again, why I'm involved in Interact, is because I love serving in that mentorship capacity. I would say that our district council is very, I wouldn't call them autonomous at all. Julie and I participate in every district council meeting, even though we don't have a vote. The advisors don't have a vote either, but they obviously are there as well too. So there's definitely there are checks and balances. We do offer advice and guidance. At the same time, though, we recognize that these are not just future leaders; these are leaders right now in their communities, and we need to empower them to make their own decisions, to make their own mistakes. I'm from Silicon Valley, so this is the land where we talk about failure as a success. You learn from your failures and you learn from your mistakes just as much as you learn from your successes. So we let them make those mistakes themselves and learn from them. And perhaps unsurprisingly, perhaps surprisingly to some, they do. And they improve and they evolve, and if they have to create a process to do something that was kind of haphazard before, they do it. I'm constantly amazed at how little Julie and I have to do to encourage this to happen. It really does happen because these are the types of people and individuals and human beings who want to improve themselves and develop themselves and be better leaders and to be more organized, thoughtful, empathetic, equitable. So again, just more of the reason why I love doing this work. So that's generally speaking how our district council works. I would love to pass the mic around to other folks' experiences, and if you're at this point, if you have questions about how you might want to get one started, please feel free to jump in. But we're small enough groups, so if you want to just unmute yourself and speak up, please go ahead, or raise your hand and I'll call on you.
Well, let me jump in here.
Yeah, Don, go ahead.
It's kind of Peter, it's kind of intimidating to hear you talk about the district council 5170, but we first got the idea from meeting with Chris Miller and some other folks from the clubs, the districts down in the Bay Area. Came back and raised the idea with individually with the presidents of some 20 odd clubs in my district, and just asked for volunteers who wants to be a member of this council. And the clubs submitted names to me, and I remained in contact with those individuals beginning last fall. This is all virtual now. And began to hold monthly meetings. And, we just kind of started off from scratch, not sure what do we do at a monthly meeting. And for us, given the timing, the big subject was, well, how do we keep our clubs alive? How do we keep them thriving virtually, keep the members engaged, and that sort of thing? I mean, those were major topics, fundraising and some basic issues. But certainly, we're not functioning like you all are doing as far as a district fundraising project, or even we did do a community service project last spring, kind of to kick off the district council, because I see it, the district council, as a way of bringing the individual clubs together and communicating with each other, sharing ideas, and getting out of their own little boxes. It's very easy for Rotary clubs as well as Interact clubs to just be an entity unto themselves, but there's a much bigger world out there, and we can do bigger and better things if we work together than if we work alone. So, but it's been a struggle. As I think I mentioned in the introduction, at a monthly meeting, we get 5 to 6 participants, clubs, pretty much the same individuals. And many of our, I'd say half of our clubs are maybe half is 40% of our clubs are not meeting at all this year, just not meeting. So with a smaller district and a smaller number of clubs, it's kind of a different game. But the one thing that's been very valuable to me is attending these get-togethers, whether it's in person or virtually like this, to learn from other people and to share their ideas and their experiences in putting this together. It's you know, I'm taking notes here. I've got a lot of good ideas, and that's going to be that's really ideas, you know, concrete ideas that the council and the other Interact clubs in our district can work on, are a way to give, I think, meaning to this body. And you know, if I was just talking about, well, I want to put together an organization, fine, but that's not going to interest anybody. What's the organization going to do? That's what motivates the kids. What are we going to do with this? Right. It's been very, you know, a little frustrating this year, but I'm encouraged. I'm always amazed by the quality of the students and the ideas that they bring to it. And I guess the big thing, Peter, I have to learn is to get out of their way and let them run it, because they're certainly capable of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't, that's really great point, Don. I can't say enough about at least the youth we have here. And like I mentioned, we have that fall leadership conference in October. Normally, as Chris showed in his video, that's, you know, you're in a gymnasium in one of our local high schools with 4,000 students. The lights go out, all of them put on their cell phone lights, and there's one person, like the governor or the project's chair. That's another group that's in the district council, by the way, or the project chairs. Sorry, forgot to mention them. And they're introducing what the project is on a big video screen, and just all the kids are going bananas. It's awesome. It's one of the most inspiring things to see. So I can't wait to get back in person again with all of them, or with this small group. But yeah, just to see them, it's something that they put together themselves. Like all Julie and I did was order the Subway sandwiches. You know, they put together all the workshops, all the trainings, all of they put all the legwork into it, and they make it sing. It's fantastic to see. And I think that works at small scale and large scale too. I think there's some things that we miss, and I can't be as, you know, intimately involved with individual clubs and with nurturing clubs, because just it happens on such a large scale way in our district. So I think there's actually a benefit sometimes to being in a more in a smaller scale environment. I see Hank had a question in the chat real quick about a district marketing plan for Interact district formation. That's a really great question. I don't know that as far as at the district level, Hank, is that what you're thinking? At the Rotary district level or within?
Yeah. Oh, am I muted? No.
No, you're fine.
Okay. I was thinking about the district council. You know, I've heard people talk about having a rush event, but, you know, do you have a rush event to form a council? Don't you have to go through your district to get the support for it? And is there a budget?
I don't know that. So again, I don't want to say that this is the way it works in every district, because I do think every district runs it a little bit differently. So Rotary Interact is a Rotary youth project. So there are some things that we have to go through the district to get approval for, primarily around financing and funds, mostly for operations. Like I said, that all of the money that gets raised is funneled through bank accounts that the district has visibility over and control. But at the same time, they don't necessarily, it's not like they're holding their purse strings tightly if once they know what the funds are being used for, right? We just have to submit, right? We work with our youth treasurer, our Interact treasurer, as well as our advisors, and then Julie and I, our chairs, the chairs. We work with Chris, the youth services chair at the district level, on sort of a rough annual budget of what we want, what we're expecting to raise for the projects, what we need as far as operations go. So for meetings, food, the real basics. And then we also get a stipend to send some students and one of our chairs to the RICON every year, to the international convention. So the district supplies sort of a stipend for us to every year for operations. We usually raise that. We're kind of self-sustaining. We actually raise that typically at our fall leadership conference, because we do charge a fee to attend. A lot of that goes into merch and swag that the students get, so they're getting a lot out of it, but a small portion of it does pretty much fund, because it's so large, our operations for the year. As far as having to get approval for the council in the first place, I don't know. Unfortunately, I wasn't around at the time when that happened, so I don't know what kind of process had to occur to get it created. It's not, as far as I know, written into the Rotary district bylaws. Our district council has their own bylaws that they follow, and they've, like I said, operate fairly autonomously from the district. We don't need district approval for a lot of things other than how we spend our money. And I don't know, but we also don't have a seat at the district table either. So it's not as though we have our youth governor, our Interact governor gets to sit with the Rotary district council. It's pretty much separate entities. I see Brian's got his hand up, but really quick, if I could, Claire, if you wouldn't mind sort of talking about a little bit about how you, in your capacity, interact with your Rotary district. I'd be really curious.
Yeah, so our district council is really new. I think the last time they had one in place was probably like 12 or 10 years ago. But we just started one this semester, so at the beginning of January. So we have, I'm the district governor, and then we also have a lieutenant governor and the secretary treasurer, and then we have a director of public relations, and then a director of social media and marketing. And basically we have the district chair for Interact, and we have a board meeting once a month where we kind of discuss planning of like the district member meeting that we also have once a month. And we discuss like fundraising things and stuff like that. We're kind of the same. We work pretty much autonomously from the district. So we don't like work with them as much. It's mostly just through our Interact district chair. And since we're so new, we haven't really had an opportunity to do like district level projects or conferences and things like that. But that's definitely something that we want to do in the future. So
awesome. Thank you. That's really helpful, actually, I think, for us. And then Brian, I think you had your hand raised if you want to jump in.
Yeah, sure. And actually, I'm just as glad that you let Claire go before my question, because then my question actually I can kind of direct to both of you. Now, I know you, Peter, you had said that you weren't around at the beginning of your district council, so you don't necessarily know. The way I would phrase my question is, what was the problem that your district council for Interact was intending to solve? And since you weren't around in the beginning, you don't necessarily know why it was formed. That would then kind of be my question to Claire. Why did you guys feel the need to start one up? And then Peter, to you, sort of what do you feel that the district council does that you wouldn't be able to do if you didn't have the district council? What kind of things is it helping you to do?
Really good question.
That's a really good question. I'll answer really quick, and then I'll let Claire respond from her perspective, since they are just getting started with their council. I wasn't around for the origin story, but I can tell you more why it was it came together, and that's also, it helps to answer the second part of your question in terms of what benefit we get out of it, and that goes down to pros and cons, what works, what doesn't. One thing specifically under how does this district council support clubs, individual Interact clubs, and the broader group? It really is in coordination and efficacy and consistency. It helps them one, come together around a greater good and have more impact, and they recognize that they have that ability at all joining together in some form or another to amplify their impact, if you will. Because the alternative is that you have individual Interact clubs working on projects, maybe at their school or in their community, doing a park beautification or another project that is perfectly valid project, and maybe they want to keep doing that, but at a higher level, if they partner together with each other, they can do even greater things and have an even broader impact. So there's that in terms of the scale of the impact that both the students and I think we recognize as Rotarians, because when we partner, I work on another youth project called the Enterprise Leadership Conference, which is a 3-day entrepreneurial training workshop for high school juniors, which is how I actually got indirectly tied into Interact, because my co-chair was a part of that too. And that's a collaboration of 7 or 8 now Rotary clubs in our area who came together because not one of us could do it on our own. It's a very large endeavor. So we recognize that, and I think the Interactors recognize that that's the case too. It also helps in terms of fundraising and events and publicity, and like I said, marketing. As Claire noted, they have publicity and a PR and a digital marketing team or a social media marketing team. We have the same because the ability to amplify the message and to spread the word about those smaller projects or about individual areas and their fundraisers or individual clubs and their events, the ability to publicize it and to get more people in tune and aware of what they're doing is so much greater at that district level and that higher level. So that's the efficacy, the coordination, and the consistency. And then frankly, just it really allows for greater leadership development, because there's more responsibility there. You're not just the treasurer of one club, you're the treasurer of the whole district, and you're having to manage in our case 13 areas and all these clubs supporting one big project, right? So there's also a responsibility factor that I think really appeals to particularly Interact students, but the kind of youth we see getting involved in Rotary projects, and then the kind of Rotarians that we are, right? I think we all have that kind of desire to improve ourselves and to expand our power and or not power, but our breadth, our scope. So that's from my perspective. Claire, do you have anything to as far as why you guys decided to start a district council, if you were involved in that?
Yeah, so a lot of it was just trying to get all of the clubs connected within our district. For our city of Tracy, we actually have 4 Interact clubs at high schools, one of them being on a town kind of on the outskirts of Tracy. But our club actually wasn't even aware that they existed. We'd only worked with one of the other Interact clubs, and I think it was pretty much the same for all of the Interact clubs in our district. They kind of worked so independently that they didn't even know that there was other Interact clubs around them and in towns right next to them. And so I actually went to the district governor of our district, and we kind of had a discussion about it, and we decided to start the district council so that we could bring the clubs together. And it just became a really good space to share ideas for projects and things like that, because a lot of the Interact clubs were starting to lose ideas, especially with COVID. And they would, because they didn't think they really had any support from other clubs, they would start to kind of fizzle out a bit. And with the district council, we've been able to kind of bring back some of those clubs, help train some of the officers to start their own clubs and keep them going. And so it's been really helpful that way. And also kind of what Peter was saying about the amount of impact, being able to combine clubs and collaborate to do certain projects has been a lot more helpful than just doing them by themselves. So
That's great. Did you have to go through any process with your sorry, Brian, did you have to go through any
No,
process with the district to like do paperwork or, change any bylaws with the district, or was it sort of just an agreement with the district governor that you guys would go and get this organized?
Yeah, so as far as I know, I don't believe that we had to change any bylaws or anything like that. It was sort of, we already had a district interact chair. We just never had like a council or anything like that before.
Mhm.
So the district governor put me in contact with the chair, and we just sort of had an agreement to get that started.
Great. Makes a lot of sense. Brian, did
So
you
I
have a
actually
follow-up?
have kind of a follow-up question,
Yeah,
yeah,
go for it.
which is that so we've got sort of the district which does its stuff, and you've got the council which does its stuff, but then in the middle there you've got a bunch of Rotary clubs, each of which has a sort of one-to-one relationship, often usually with the sponsored Interact club. At least that's how I understand it. And I'm wondering how involved or not, or how unifying, having the Interact District Council on the one side and the district itself on the other side, does that help in any way get the Rotary clubs that support Interact clubs talking to one another? Because that's another thing that I've discovered, is that not a lot of Rotary clubs know what the other Rotary clubs are doing unless you're the youth services chair and you get the spreadsheet or you go and look it up. So I'm
Right.
just
No,
wondering how much that helps you guys.
it's a fabulous question. And it actually, it helps us out. I think it helps in terms of, outreach strategies get to be more coordinated each year. So, they do that then, and more regular in terms of, when I say that, I mean the incoming leadership at the Interact clubs communicating with their Rotary sponsors, right? And because a lot of times that communication gets broken down year to year because, the youth services chair at the Rotary club changed, or obviously the leadership at the Interact club changed over almost every year. So it's a little early, but we'll have to go with it. But it helps coordinate that communication and that back and forth, and it makes it more consistent every year. So we're consistently having the clubs reach out to their sponsoring clubs to get those contacts and to identify who it is that they need to be working with. It also helps us share at the district level, both for Interact and for the chairs, all of that information. So we're constantly encouraging them to reach out, get contact info for the right people, both at the Interact club, and then the Rotarians and then the Interact club's reaching out to the Rotarians and finding out who that person is. And we share everything in a big Google share folder. So we have access to that stuff in real time.
Cool.
Looks like they're calling us
Thanks.
back. Thank
Just
you.
if I can make one last comment.
Please. We got about 20 seconds.
No, it won't take that long. Peter, you talked about scale as far as leadership development. I would add to scale continuity.